Guten Erev Shabbos. This is a pre-recorded shir for Motzei Shabbos, Parshas Chayesora. This week is the Kinus HaShluchim in New York, hence the pre-recording. So start off with our thank you to our sponsors, Mr. and Mrs. Pinchas Rabin, who have sponsored this week's shir in celebration of the Rebbe's return to good health in the year Tovshin Lamed Ches, and in honor of their 47th wedding anniversary, Le'erech Yomim V'Shanim Tavis. I'd like to share with you we call it a story, but a very current development. And that is that the youngest, I believe, of the Rabin family, his name is Zalmi, married recently, the last couple of years, living in Eretz Yisrael, in the army, Miloimnik, and he was called up to be in the army, and his parents live here, and so they have this term, what they call a lone soldier. At any rate, when Zalmi was called up for Miloim, for his reserve duty, his father was concerned, posted a photo on the family group, $1 that his mother had received from the Rebbe, with the hope that he wrote that as Hashem, Zalmi comes home safely from Gaza, he will come and get the $1. Zalmi had been particular to daven every day since he was drafted, and he wanted to continue in Gaza. So his family asked here what they can do to help him. So he said, if you could get I very appreciate if you get what they call a tactical tefillin case, the kind which is waterproof and fireproof. So his family, who do live in Israel, managed to get this ready for him a few hours before they left. They got this special protected tefillin case, and they also put in it boxes of Anash, whatever, to give out for the soldiers, etc. They brought this to him and gave him the case, and he goes, he's anxious, but with a great bitachon in Hashem. And then when the family in Israel were there giving it to him, they went around, put on tefillin with soldiers, and almost all the soldiers had already put on tefillin. One hadn't, and they took the time to daven carefully, word for word, with great feeling. Zalmi subsequently went into Gaza, and we didn't hear anything from him for a week. They came out just before Shabbos. Miraculously, they're all okay. Later, Zalmi says how his unit was ambushed inside Gaza. They were surrounded by Hamas, from all fire from all sides. There was a fierce battle for many hours. During this time, Zalmi's gun jams. He couldn't shoot or fight back. We had one advantage over his colleagues, that they had left their bags in a particular place, and before they were ambushed, Zalmi had his bag with him. So after almost 24 hours of fierce battle, our soldiers, Baruch Hashem, managed to eliminate all of the Hamas attackers with no injuries to themselves. Afterwards, they realized that most of the soldiers, their bags had gotten burned, and they had lost their tefillin. Zalmi was one of the very few who had his tefillin with him, and so in the middle of Gaza, Zalmi helps his friends one by one to put on tefillin and to say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And so Zalmi says to how he sees how the prayers of everyone were with him when he was in action. He came out and saw this miraculous Yeshua, and is very grateful. The father, Pinchas, also says he occurred to him that actually a couple of weeks ago, Pinchas had sponsored a shir in Zechus of Zalmi And so we'll share a panorama. And so he sees that this is also contributing to this miraculous success and safe and getting out of there safely. So, Bez Hashem, we should hear good news for all the hostages to be found safe and sound and come home to their families in peace, as well as all the chayolim, all the soldiers, etc. So I got this question from a shliach, an untypical for Chabad question. So he's a shliach in a place. He's got a college somewhere in Europe, and there's a Sephardi man, a sefer, and he's come to study medicine. And she's asking, our Seder Hachayim space, and a lot of things is very different. If now to many Yidden in Israel, especially for Sephardim, would tend to start off their day much earlier than is Noag in Chabad. And so the Shliach is starting his Sudas Shabbos at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Besides, it's how it's convenient with the guests, etc. But this Sephardi Sha'id is asking that the Chayra having the meal in the afternoon, you missed out on Sudas Shabbos, Sudas Shachris. To be the Shabbos morning meal, it has to be before midday. So this is the question: is there a din of Sudas Shachris has to be before midday, or so? I'm looking here. You have a couple of quotes here in Shulchan Aruch. So in the Shulchan Aruch Siman Reish Pei Ches, it says, "Osel is anois b'Shabbos ad vov shoes." You're not allowed to fast until after 6 hours of the day. So that was my immediate reaction. That it's not so much that there's a din that the Sudas Shabbos has to be before midday. It's more the emphasis that you're not allowed to fast. But in Chabad, where many people will have eaten something in the morning, so that should have energy for davening. So therefore, this question of fasting doesn't apply, and therefore it's not a problem if the Sudas Shabbos is a little bit later. Just to so here we have the Shulchan Aruch before the Alter Rebbe, the Shulchan Aruch of Yosef Karo, that fasting until after 6 hours wouldn't be okay. Then we've got the Mishnah Berurah, where he talks about Al-Kain Shaloika Din Oisa Mixas Kehiles. It's wrong that people draw out the morning thing and davening, etc., until close to Chatzos, when there's going to be special occasions of Gzeirus, and they would daven longer. And it looks like they even do this consciously as a half-day fast. Well, Shabbos is not a day of fasting. Then he adds, Im to'am midi, koidem tfilas musaf. If you did have some small snack before davening musaf, mutalis acha yosem shos, then you are allowed to allowed to start the meal more than 6 hours from the musaf. And he quotes here the Pri Megadim. So Pri Megadim is quite the way the Mishnah Berurah understands that it's the issue of the 6 hours is not so much that it should be called Sudas Shachris and not Sudas Tzaharaim, but because of Isur Tainus. Let's read the Alter Rebbe also. Sorach l'maher lechel b'soif shor shishis she'osel is anos b'Shabbos ad chatzos. So we don't see any mention here of it there being a need to have Sudas Shachris before Chatzos, so it should be called Sudas Shachris. That doesn't seem to be the emphasis. Now, admittedly, it's Sephardi Sha'id on campus. He did show Makoris from Sephardi Makoris, who do say that his dafka has to be to be to Sudas Shachris. It has to be before midday. All right, so there may be such an opinion, but certainly in the poskim in in our part of the world, there doesn't seem to be a concern. Let's go on to the next point, which we have here. Is a woman allowed to drink water before Havdalah? And her concern is that her husband takes a long time to get home on Motzei Shabbos. So let's read what we have over here. Now, first of all, what is this thing of not drinking before Havdalah? So when the Chachamim instituted the union of Kiddush and Havdalah, as part of that, of designating these as special moments to do Kiddush and Havdalah, to perhaps as an incentive that it shouldn't be overlooked, they also institute that it should be that you shouldn't eat or drink before having done Kiddush and before having done Havdalah in their respective time slots. So let's look here. We have towards the end of Shabbos. So this is the first part of Hilchos Shabbos till Siman Shin is what is most of it is talking about Kiddush and Havdalah and davening and Ma'aser Sedra. That's until Siman Shin. Shin Aleph till Shin Mem Daled talks about the Malachas mostly, and then from then on goes to Hilchos Eruvin. Anyway, towards the end of the first part of Hilchos Shabbos, Siman Tzadik Tes, so we have here Osru Chachomim Lechel Shum Dovo Elishtos Shum Mashke. Chachamim forbade us to eat or drink, eat any food, to drink any liquid, chutz mimayim, with the exception of water b'motzei Shabbos ad sheyavdil. So we do have an issue, or that we don't drink before Havdalah, but the Shulchan Aruch says water is okay. And then we have at the bottom of the page, we have the Hayoim Yoim from Gimel Iyar, which says that Ein Shoisim Mayim Koidem Havdalah. Although the Shulchan Aruch does allow drinking water before Havdalah, but we take that further and we don't drink water either. It was still the question of whether that applies to women or not. That's still open for discussion. But meanwhile, why is there this chumrah, which in Chabad, of not drinking water before Havdalah, when Shulchan Aruch says it is permitted? So you can see on the left of the screen, we have in Kaf HaChaim, who tends to bring the Inyanim, the Hanhogas from Kabbalah. So he brings the Fidiva HaGoinim Sharet Shuva. That Sharet Shuva, that's talking about the Goinim as in the period before the Rif, 1100 years ago. So one of the volumes of their correspondence is called Sharet Shuva. So da Filomaim Ein Lishtois Koidem Havdalah Al HaKois. So although poskim generally, Pinigla, say that you are allowed to drink water, there are Goinim who say that water also not. And so also lishtis mayim kodim Havdalah, and then there's consequences. So we have here perhaps a little bit of a conflict between the Derech HaNigla and Derech HaKabbalah. So that Kabbalim, etc., we don't drink even water. Okay, so that's where we've explored that far. That why we're not makel to drink before Havdalah, even water. Then we look then the question is, what about for women? So in the middle of the screen, you have here from the Sefer Halichos Bas Yisrael. I like to look at Sforim which specialize, because they've done their research more than I have, and so I appreciate their contribution to this. So this is a sefer dedicated to halachas relating to women, and so he writes: Afshe yesh hamekel lenoshim litoin la'achamius baracham avdil lo'nehu gekein lemaisa. Although there are poskim who are more lenient for women to just say baracham avdil than to have some food or to drink, so that's not followed. So in the note he has here Reish Lamed Zayin. It brings from a contemporary from Mishnah Halachos from Reb Nasha Klein. That the story is that the husband stays late in shul, and he says, I've got an eitzah, that your wife should be encouraged to have shalashudas in the appropriate time. But maybe she won't be so hungry that there should be, then she'll be able to have the patience to wait till the husband comes home and make Havdalah, and everyone should be fine. So he says this of course, and this is also perhaps related also, we discussed this before, in many circles, they're very cagey about women making Havdalah. We're not so worried about this. If there's a practical reason for a woman to make Havdalah, so she'll make Havdalah and drink what she wants. So what we were seeing is that it isn't recommended to that she shouldn't be drinking water before Havdalah. If necessary, make Havdalah and continue. All right. Now, last week we had a discussion about Shinui Mokim, and when changing location being a hefsek. So I got an email from one of our listeners. So I had put him on our weekly mailing list for the recordings. I didn't ask him permission, but now he actually was grateful that he had heard this discussion about Shinei Mokim. And what I discussed then was that Shinui Mokim is only an issue if it's for a protracted period. But if it's just an in and out, discussed about if you go from the house, from the main room to the kitchen and come back and you can't see, that Shinui Mokim, if it's just for in and out, straight back, doesn't constitute a hefsek. That we got from Siman Kuf Ayin Ches, Kuf Ayin Ches, Sif Ches. So our listener, he lives somewhere in the United States, and he has a seder. He gets into the car in the morning to go to work, and he'll take a coffee into the car with him, and then on the way he'll have his coffee. Whilst he's driving, sometimes he'll stop at what in America they call a gas station, we call it a petrol station, and he'll stop the car and put in petrol. Sometimes he'll have to go inside to pay. So, and his question is, when he comes back, does he have to make a new bracha on the hemshech of his cup of coffee? So, I think even if he has to go into the kiosk into the building to pay, I think that's also just there and back. He's not there to go and chat with the people, behind the desk. So that's also just an arai. But I wanted to add another angle to this, which came into Asr Liyod, and it's a very useful halacha. And brings me back a good few years, and I was invited to do a session of halacha in the Kinus HaShluchos. And one of the questions which I was given in advance is the following. A woman is running a school, and she starts on, if you're running a school, it looks like you're here, there, and everywhere the whole time. You're running around, and what do they do about brachas? They make her have a cup of coffee, but they could be coming with their coffee, whatever, going around. Do they have to make a new bracha? And sometimes it's not, if it's in the same building, so the halacha is under the same roof. You can, if you have das, to go from one to the other. But it's not necessarily in a school setting. It could be sometimes going outside. It could be even to another building, from one building to building. So looking for some guidance on that. So in my research, I came across a very interesting point. And here we go. That the whole din of Shinui Mokim is only for someone who has a Mokim Kavua. Since the meal started at a set setting, then going away from that setting constitutes an interruption. But if lechatchila, you started off with your bracha with no set, setting, as they say in English, of no fixed abode, then the Shinei Mokim is not a hefsek. So it's almost as if it's the Shinei Mokim is a self-created problem. Because you made it a set place, therefore, if you change your place, you have an issue. So this we'll go through this idea. This is also Sim Kufay and Ches. It's in Mogen Avraham. The Alter Rebbe brings it in Seif Dalad. It's a long Seif, but this is the end, which let's see on the screen. If you went away with intention to come straight back, that's not that is not an interruption if you have a duty to come back to your place. If let's say it's bread, you have to come back to your place. Therefore, we discussed this previously in the last year. It's like a string attached. You went out, but the string is pulling you back. You have to bench where you ate. Therefore, that Shinei Mokim is not a hefsek. Going away from where you are to another place in the middle of a meal would only be justified if you intend to eat in the second location. Okay. Now, here he starts a new paragraph, at least in the new print. Even if you're leaving your original location and you're going with no intention of coming back, if when you made hamoitzi, then you had intention to finish in another house. It's very common. People have Sheva Brochas, and they make a small crowd, and they ask a few neighbors to come in for dessert. And they'll come in, and they'll have some challah, and they'll finish the meal in the second house. Mutter, that is okay, but let's read the next words. Sharei mitchilo loy kova b'mokim zeh also dosai. That the whole issue of not leaving your mokim kavua not because you have a second mokim kavua. The word is that the first one wasn't a mokim kavua because you didn't intend to have your whole meal there. As travelers would do, that they would eat whilst they are on their way. We're talking about people traveling on foot, that they are eating whilst they're walking. When they're finished eating, okay, then they take a break. We're going to do bench now, and then they continue walking. Why is that okay? Because they had in mind not to be kaveya. So let's read this carefully. I think we can say the default position is you have been gemil, you are kaveya mokim. So you are linked to a location. But if you clearly had in mind to be in a state of movement, then you don't have the din of kriyas mokim, and therefore shinim mokim isn't a hefsek. Perhaps it's a little bit clearer in the Mishnah Brura. This is in the same siman, Kufay and Ches, but it's towards the end, and it's drawn from the same Mogen Avraham. So Hoil Chidrachim, Deheim Lekule Alma Mutalehem Lahalech V'Lecha, that wayfarers are allowed to eat as they are walking, even though they no longer are able to see their original site. Machmas merchak haderech, because of the distance, or there may be trees in the way. That's not a problem. Because clearly they did not engage in a specific setting when they made hamoitzi. Rather, when they said hamoitzi, it was the clear mindset that they're going to keep on walking whilst they're eating. Therefore, the whole business of, you've broken the sequence because you've changed location, that does not apply in this case, because that was lechatchila when they say their bracha at the outset. That was in plan to change to the location. Okay, so let's move on. So now, someone asks me a question this past week. There is a concept of a man should not be served personally by a woman. It's a din of tznius. And so he was asking, how far do we go about this? Let's say if on the airplane and the stewardess are serving drinks, is that included in this issue? All right, so you can see the address of this halacha is in Even Ezer Siman Chof Aleph Seif Hey. Then that's just near the dinim of Yichud. And that's Siman Chof. It's in that region at any rate. So the Shulchan Aruch says the following: that a man should not be having personal services from an isha, whether an adult or a child, whether she's a maid, and that might be leading to inappropriate thoughts. Which kind of service are we talking about? Bathing, washing, and pouring water for bathing, preparing the bed, and mezigas hakos, which is our discussion about serving a drink. Then there are various restrictions for husband and wife, in the time when she's a nida, and that is because they bring to a certain closeness, and that's why it should be avoided in the time of nidas. So the Ramah suggests, yesh oimrim, that the idea of eating together from the same plate, which is also doing by the nidah, that would also be also with another woman, which is not your wife at any time, because of it being a behavior which brings a closeness. Okay. There are those who say no, that don't worry about the harchokas for vis-a-vis other women. The dinim of harchokas are extra precautions between husband and wife. They do not apply to other women. Which, so let's say, is it okay for a man, you're in the shop and the woman behind the counter wants to give you change? You say, okay, she puts it in your hand, or should you ask her to put it down? So according to the first opinion, the Ramah, the chayre is also something to be avoided. According to the second opinion, the Rashba, it's not an issue because it's not ishtay nida. Okay, so I know in the Stamford Hill, it is standard understanding in the shops that they will put down the change and you'll pick it up from the table. Let's move on, though. That's not our focus for today. Some say that these restrictions are only in a private place. And then it means yichud mamash, because then you have a yichud in any case. Where there are many people around, then you would be allowed to have a goysha maid helping with the washing, etc. So, and then we have another yesh oimrim. If it's not done derech chiba, then that's okay. Meanwhile, we have, although the Shulchan Aruch does say that mezigas hakois would not be okay, what we're seeing in the Ramah, various arguments to the kula. No, it's not private, it's not in a way of affection. And bottom line is, it is customary to be mekel, to accept, let's say, the service of serving a cup of drink, etc. Let's read now in the Aruch HaShulchan, in the same location. And perhaps I'll go straight into English. Don't be surprised at the minhag which is choltfus in Jewish all over Eden when we have visitors in a home, and it's the hostess will offer them food and offer them a drink, And how does that fit with which we saw in the Shulchan Aruch, that one should not take services from a woman because of tznius? And the answer is no, it's not that it's not forbidden. Certainly, if the husband is there, so serving everyone, even if he's not there, the hostess is not doing this in a way of hiskarvus, of affectionate closeness, etc. She's doing so as a mitzvah of hachnosas orchim, of hosting wayfarers. And he says, Bachsanyo, if it's going to be in a hostel where you pay for your stay, etc., and the hostess is serving drinks to the guests at the hostel. Again, that's not a service in a way of escarvus, of closeness. Rather, it's a service, a service. So what we're seeing here is that that the Minik Olam is not to worry about this when it's being done as a service rather than any form of closeness. And certainly that would be true on the airplane when you have a hostess, waitress going around serving everyone drinks. That's not in a way of hiskarvus, it's a way of sherus, of service, and therefore halacha it's okay. We're going to go into a totally different topic. So here there was Baruch Hashem Mazel Tov, a baby was born to a couple at on Shabbos at 5 p.m. The kohen, the original kohen, is a shliach who is going to the Kinnas HaShluchim, who came to the Kinnas HaShluchim, and as a result, he wasn't able to do the Pidyon Haben. The question was, could you do the Pidyon Haben on Sunday evening? The reason why they want to do it on Sunday evening is because during the day, it's well, to do a bit during a work day on Monday. So then they worry that they won't have most of their friends won't be able to be present. So they wanted to do it on Sunday night. So originally I'd said that generally we Ashkenazim, we do the Pidyon Haben during the day, but if necessary, it can be done at night. At the time, I don't recall that he told me about the time. But meanwhile, since the shliach, the kohen, is not in England for the time, so contacted a different kohen, and he started asking a little bit more. So let's go through this carefully. Pidyon Haben should be done on day 31. Now, if the baby is born on Shabbos 4 weeks hence is day 29, yes? So Sunday is day 30. So Sunday night is already day 31. So far, we're okay. So if necessary, the Pidyon Haben can be done on Sunday night. There is, however, an opinion in numerous poskim that in addition to making sure that the Pidyon Haben should be on day 31, it should also be past 29 days and 12 hours. And now, usually 31 days is past 29 and a half days. But in this situation, actually, it doesn't work that way. Because the baby was born at 5 p.m., so then the 29 days, by Shabbos 4 weeks hence at 5 p.m. is 28 days. And then Sunday at 5 p.m., that's 29 days. So Sunday night is less than 29 and a half days. So it is, on the one hand, the baby was born the end of day 1, and now we want to do the Pidyon Haben at the beginning of day 31. And curiously, you'll have here, it's Taka on Yom Lamed Aleph, but it's less than 29 and a half days. So let's take a look at what we have here on the margin of the Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Pidyon Haben, Siman Shin Hey. Ayin v'Sefer Tevas Goyme, Parashas Re'eh. If I'm not mistaken, it's a sefer from the Pri Megadim. At any rate, I didn't look it up. Shekosav im noilad beyoyim haShabbos, chatzi shah kodem motzei Shabbos. Mamish case. A baby was born on Shabbos afternoon, half an hour before nightfall. The Anash.org the Shavua is 4 weeks later, Chav Ches Yom b'Shabbos. So that time on Shabbos will be 28 days. Ubiyim Alev, Chav Tes Yom Me'es Le'es, and Sunday at 5 p.m. will be 29 full days. Also, Liftois B'Yom Beis Miyad Ba'Boiker. Even Monday morning would also be an issue. Koidem Sheishlimu Yud Beis Tashtzag B'Mei HaKayis. So in our setting, where it's 5 p.m., so by Monday morning, 5 a.m., we have 29 and a half days. But if it had been in summer, there could be the baby was born at 8 p.m. and it's still day. So to do a Pidyon Haben before 8 a.m. in the morning would be an issue. We'd want to have 29 and a half days, and Tashtzag, that's 793 Chalokim. It's about 2/3 of an hour. That's this Choftes Yud Beis Tashtzag is the length of what's called a Chodesh Halavana. The average cycle of the moon is this number of 29 days, 12 hours, and 793 out of 1080 parts. So this Tevas Goyme is alerting that even on the Monday would not be allowed to be done very early, and certainly if it would be done Leil Lamed Aleph on the Sunday night going into Monday, and there's not yet Choftes Me'es Le'es Yud Beis Shois, that would be L'chachila. One shouldn't do the Pidyon Haben then. So although the Torah says idea of Shloshim Yom, but also it's understood that it should be a Chodesh. It should be a full Chodesh, which is 29 days, for a full kind of, the moon is back to the same position as it was the last cycle, and that takes 29 days and 12 hours and 793 Chalokim. So yes, so the Pidyon Haben L'chatchila should not be done on the Sunday night. So then they're asking, what about doing it on Monday evening? Because they want to have really that I'm concerned, because you have a mitzvah to do it on the right day, and if it's delayed, you mevatel a mitzvah. There is quite strong language about it in some poskim, but I said you do what you can. Don't know how keen these people are to. They don't mind having family and friends over because to get it mamish right. But okay, ideally it should be done on sometime during Monday during the daytime. But if that's, and just a little point here, during the same day, all right, there's the earlier you have Zrizun Makdim and the mitzvah, but the whole day is the time to do it. But if you miss the day, then you're violated in a sense of doing a mitzvah bismah. Okay, so now I'm walking in Kingston Avenue yesterday, and someone comes over to me, and he wants me to give him an answer if a child soiled an undergarment. It's polyester, and so are you allowed to soak it in water on Shabbos? So my immediate reaction was that it's not okay. He says he's going around. So he's got 4 matirim and 6 who are say it's also. So I said I won't help you in any case. But anyway, so I'm going to look into it. Right. So now let's explain something. There is a concept of skita. We discussed this a couple of weeks ago. We're talking about having a guy using a mop on Shabbos. And when it comes to skita, there's two types of skita. The skita where you want the liquid, and that's like squeezing grapes, skita told the dosh. And then you got skita where you want the cloth clean. That's that skita told the dimalaben. So that's area one area of skita. Then there's another issue about before you get to skita. What about soaking? So generally we say that merely soaking a garment, that itself is called washing it. Now that is true for a garment like made of wool, etc. What about something which is a plastic, leather? So leather is non-absorbent, in the broader sense. There may be a little bit of absorption, but largely it's non-absorbent, and therefore soaking leather does not penetrate largely, and therefore you are allowed to wash it off, although you shouldn't be doing it with great vigor, but that would be okay. So it's like leather, so then a plastic, like I have these coat, which is like an overcoat over plastic, which a lot of people wear on Shabbos. That's okay. It doesn't have a problem of a washing, laundry. What about something which is made of synthetic material? So he says here polyester. So is there? So now let's take a look. Now you have here on the screen, you have here from the Sefer Piskei Teshuvos in Siman Shin Beis, where it talks about clothing on Shabbos, and right. So let's read that inside. Begodim ha'asuyim me'orig bad ha'osim michutim syntetiyim. When you have clothing made of synthetic thread, they should be dealt in a similar way to clothing made of regular fibers of wool or linen, etc. And then he continues in the second column. One should not be wetting, soaking clothes, tablecloths, any other form of cloth, which are made of synthetic fibers. So you've got terylene, etc. So let's read now the note more carefully, because obviously he says he has some of those are mekel, some of them are machmir. So let's read this carefully. So he quotes here that this psak of not soaking artificial fibers is from Orlet Shirin, that's Rabbi Tzina Bashal, from Shevet HaLevi, from Rav Vosner, Chutz Shoni is from Rav Karelitz. Now, in the highlighted part, although the material of nylon, rubber, etc., they don't absorb water. However, since the garment which we're dealing with is made of a weave of thread, so then the water is absorbed in the pores between the weave, and therefore the soaking it in water is going to be washing in a similar way as it would be with natural fabric. And therefore, we would use the term sheyosazeo kibuson, merely soaking. So I'm not talking about skita yet. I'm talking about soaking it. By soaking something which is similar to the cloth, so although it's synthetic fibers, it's still saying that sheyosazeo kibuson, soaking it itself is already a form of a laundry. Now, then he writes that in response to Tzitz Eliezer, and in his response of Nidberu from Rav Waldenberg and from Rav Zilber, respectively, they had written that synthetic fibers would have the din like leather, that there's no absorption, and you are allowed to soak them, just not to rub them industriously, as is the din of leather. And indeed, the Shmir Shabbos Kelchosa follows that view, and therefore he says there is a respectable opinion there. But since number one, it's often that even in the synthetic fiber garments, there will be also a percentage of natural fibers mixed in, which would be absorbent. And they, for sure, there may be stitching, which is done with natural fibers. And therefore, one should be mach. Then he goes further, he says, I think that's I find very important, that people broadly won't see a difference between natural fibers and synthetic fibers. And when they see that people are makel, that they allow soaking a garment on Shabbos, and they won't, when it comes to them, they will not be differentiating whether it's a piece of underwear made from cotton or made from nylon. Therefore, it's certainly advisable to take the stricter view of not soaking nylon or polyester, etc. So that's what I would remain with. There is something which I saw, something about it having to do with Gidule Karaka. And that seems to be the basis of those who are a bit lenient, because that's to say that the din of I guess I'm not sure why it should make any difference where the fibers come from. I just feel more it's the structure, whether it is absorbent or non-absorbent. But okay, we'll go on to our next question, and that is, in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, published with the Minhagi Chabad, which Baruch Hashem was involved with, and this Kabul, Baruch Hashem, I'm getting a lot of nice feedback on it. So we discussed the issue of if someone of traveling between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz in this period, where in Eretz Yisrael from the 7th day of Mar Cheshvan, they've already started saying with Saint Halamotor, and in Chutz La'aretz we only make that changeover around the 5th of December. And so what happens if you've traveled between one and the other in the interim? Just want to say, a cousin of mine who asked me, he sent me a WhatsApp and I hadn't responded. So I told him that with WhatsApp, at least I don't know how to prioritize it to put at the top of the list. And therefore, it just goes, if I just look at it and then 20 WhatsApps later, I've forgotten about it. In the email, at least I can put it in priority, put it on the top of the list. So just anyone who wants to send me something, I'm just telling you it's something which needs a little bit more than immediate answer. So email is a better medium. So let's read the note, and he's asking me where I got my conclusion from. So we'll read this carefully. A Ben Eretz Yisrael, who is living in Eretz Yisrael, he went to Chutz La'aretz before 7th of Mar Cheshvan. So when it comes 7th of Mar Cheshvan, he's away. So he should start saying Saint Halamotor in Shemei Atfilah, because it's not a local need, it's a personal need. And therefore, he will say a personal need, he will include that in the Broch of Shemei Atfilah. Yotzala Achazai Mar Cheshvan. If he has already started saying with Saint Halamotor, because he was in Eretz Yisrael when they switched over, and now he's in Chutz La'aretz, Mamshich Lish'ol B'Birchas Hashem. So an Eretz Yisrael visitor to Chutz La'aretz, who's already switched over, so certainly in his quiet Shemona Esrei, he's going to say the Saint Halamotor. Ben Chutz La'aretz, Habol Eretz Yisrael. But if I would visit from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael at this time, so when I am there, Yish al B'Birchas Hashem, I should say the Saint Halamotor in Birchas Hashanim. But when I come back to Chutz La'aretz, Yafzik Lishal, I would switch off until such time where it's done in Chutz La'aretz. So he's asking now in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, every such entry would have a source, and so here the source is the Shulchan Menachem, Chelik Aleph, page Reish Lamed Beis, and he's asking where did I get the conclusions in this note from the source in Shulchan Menachem? So let's read what we have over here. Birke Yosef, Rov Achronim Kosvu. That's the Chidah, and most Achronim say that Kol Echad Yinhoig Kenusach Mekoime Bohoive. You should follow your current location. So that's where I would get that if you went to Eretz Yisrael and you said Talamota because that was your current location. Once you've left Eretz Yisrael, so then you switch off because your current location doesn't say Talamota. Let's go on. In the Rebbe's note, he writes, the idea of conforming to your local minhag. There's a din of lotus goydadu, that we should not have different groups doing different things. It doesn't look right. So we learn it from a pasuk, lotus goydadu, lotus agudis. I don't want to go into the whole omnibus about this, but the idea that different in the same location, different people are doing different practices it looks strange. Secondly, the Rebbe writes, Tzorach Ian Godel, why did they not paskin that when daita lachzer, when you intend to go back in Yemei HaGshomim during the winter, you should say, you should say it in Shemei Tefillah. The Rebbe finishes off to check up in the Birke Yosef. He didn't have the volume available. Right, and then we have here in the footnote in the Shulchan Menachem, quoting of Shom Shlomo Zalman, "B'daita larzer yishal mota b'shemei tefillah." So, what I'm seeing from this is this idea that an Eretz Yisrael person, so the Ben Chutz La'aretz who goes out once he's out of Eretz Yisrael, so then he stops. If he was actually a Ben Eretz Yisrael who left, then he wouldn't stop. Well, there seems to be what does he do? Does he do it in Bechas Hashonim? So yeah, so there is here a slight difference when the Ben Eretz Yisrael. What we've said is to say it in Shemei Tefillah, but that's only if he hasn't started saying Bechas Hashonim. But if he's already started and he's intending to go back, then he would continue Bechas Hashonim. Right? I hope that's a little bit clearer, but may have room for further discussion. Okay. Finally, this is our last question for today. So we have here a young man in Eretz Yisrael has put together a few pages of guidelines for putting up mezuzahs, and very, very important that when you talk about checking mezuzahs, that is answers of the Rebbe, it doesn't just mean whether the mezuzah is kosher, but also where the mezuzah is put up. So he had made this article, and he asked me to go over it. So whilst I was on the plane, I went through it, and then yesterday I typed up some of my comments on it. One of the things that I found was a chiddush to me, and that's what I want to share with you. And this is what you have on the screen, is a sefer called Mezuzos Melachim. This is from the same author of a sefer called Shulchan Melachim. Now, the name eludes me for the moment. His name is Landa, or Moshe Tzvi Landa. This is, so you can see from the print, this is pre-war, is it 100 years ago, whatever, that region. And he writes the following. There are those who say that the door frame, the mashkoif here, where the mezuzah, shoykef or makeboy, yerochav tefa. So that the door frame should have a certain thickness. It should be a tefach wide. If the mashkof is less than a tefach wide, perhaps one shouldn't say a bracha when affixing that mezuzah. I'm not totally clear what he meant. What does he mean? The mashkof, the horizontal lintel? Does he mean the the door frame on the side? Does he mean the door stopper? Because typically you have a door frame and then there's an extra piece of wood where the door bangs on. Those are definitely mostly less than a tefach. So what are the, and we've perhaps discussed the word shoykep is lashon of banging. So which part does the door bang onto? Anyway, we have here a svara that the frame should be at least a tefach wide. Where does he get this from? So you can see in the same sefer in his notes, Efshe. There is in the Gemara Menachos, where you have a whole discussion about mezuzah, Pischei Shimoi. So Pischei Shimoi, these are like crude doorways, are part of mezuzah. Or pligi ba ma Pischei Shimoi. What does it mean, a crude doorway? So Yehuda Omer, whoever that is, that less bohu tikra, that there is no ceiling. Another one says the less leish kufi, it doesn't have where the door beats at. And there are various Pirushim, Rashi, Tosfos, Rambam, Yereim. Are these two criterion, are they disagreeing with one another? Or are they saying both are considered crude? And if they are disagreeing, which the way is the halacha? Now, then one of the commentaries on the Rif is the Nemuki Yosef. So in these halachas, the Nemuki Yosef writes, the lesle hushkufi, when we say that it doesn't have a appropriate frame, she'ein ha-mashkoif rochav tefach. The mashkoif is not a tefach wide. Now, so then, as we've seen, one says tikra, one says shkufi, and the Nemuki Yosef says, what does it mean, shkufi? It's less than a tefach. It is there, but less than a tefach. And even then, he doesn't say, does he paskin that way? And the main halacha is like the Shulchan Aruch, which doesn't mention this opinion altogether. Even the Nemuki Yosef also didn't paskin this way. It's just offering this as a possibility of one of the meanings of in the Gemara. Therefore, we should follow the opinion of the Achronim that they don't learn like the Nemuki Yosef, and there's no need for to be qualified as for a mezuzah to have the thickness of a width of a tef. Yet he finishes off, Nochin lochash lechumra, shaloi levorech ad sheyiyah hamashkef rochav tefach. One should not say a bracha if the mashkef is less than a tefach wide, and veloi eda in gambe mezuzah das hanemuchi Yosef kain, l'shoinim moire ubrak b'mashkef. Now he goes into, does he talk about the door frame, the verticals, or just on the horizontal? Okay, so this whole thing was for me a chiddush. I'd never noticed this before, that there was a requirement of a thickness of a tefach, a width of a tefach. And as I was saying now, I'm not sure which part is he talking about. At any rate, what I would like to say, this is a very, very common situation with the modern UPVC doors, that typically they are less than 2 inches, certainly less than a tefach thick. And the door frame usually also have a challenge. There's nowhere to, it's an awkward way to find a place to put the mezuzah. The door frames are so narrow. What I'd like to say is, with all due respect, that the whole concern here in the Gemara, if you know the Gemara, Pischei Shimoi, as I translated, it's a crude doorway. I think I'm using more traditional materials. A doorway made of wood, which is just an inch or 2 inches wide, is quite a flimsy doorway, and therefore, in that kind of material, yes, that's considered a crude doorway, and therefore there is a reason to say it's potem mezuzah, and then I understand the muchios. Not so with the contemporary UPVC material, metal, etc., where this is not crude at all. It's very sturdy, and it's a very normal way of making a doorway. So therefore, I would say that this concern about having a tefach width is totally irrelevant to these kind of metal UPVC door frames, and you would make a bracha without any hesitation. Even the Nemuki Yosef itself is, even him, this Shulchan Mezuzah Melochim himself is not so sure how far we go with the Nemuki Yosef, but I would say certainly in the case where there's nothing crude about it, it is an absolutely normal way of making a doorway, then there's no reason to hesitate, and you can put up Muzah with a bracha and finish off the Abish that the mezuzah has got on the outside the Shin Dal Jud and different sources, the Zoyar and Sefer Chassidim, I believe, Shemed Dalsus Yisrael, Shemed Diras Yisrael. It's guarding the doorways, it's guarding the dwellings, and as the Rebbe would say, not only is it protecting the ones who are inside the house, but also Shem Yishmor Tzeisecha, also as you go out of the house, which has a mezuzah, should be protected. We should see the Shomer Ami Yisrael La'ad, we should see the protection of Eden, the Chomokim Shehem, and we should see also, as I mentioned at the beginning, we should see a Yeshua, or Achen Bnei Yisrael, who are in captivity in the hands of Zaydim Arurim Yimach Shemom. They should, our brothers and sisters should come out safely and return to their homes safely, and Shalom al Yisrael b'chol mokim shehem good Shabbos. Or actually, for you who's listening, the recording will be Motzei Shabbos. So good to